Habits and Health, Episode 11. Welcome to another edition of the podcast where we give you ideas on habits you can create for a better health and a better life. Today my guests are Mary Rensel and Ali Hively, and they've teamed up in quite a unique combination. They help people around brain optimization and helping them with their emotions and many other areas in life. And we're gonna hear a lot more from Mary and Ali coming up. If you do like this episode, please do share it with anyone who you feel would get some real value from it. Why not subscribe to the show, leave us a review, and I hope you enjoy this week's episode. Habits and Health, and my guests today are Mary Rensel and Ali Hively. How are you doing?
Amazing. How are you? Thanks for having us.
Yes,
It's good for you both to be here, and we're in Ohio today with you, are we?
Yes.
Yeah, we have the sun. Still chilly, but
yeah, we crossed the pond, to join each other.
Before we started recording, I was chatting with Mary about how you two got together, and it was a fascinating story. So, do one of you like to maybe tell that story?
Sure, go ahead, Mary.
Sure. So I was giving a lecture at a professional women's conference here in Cleveland, Ohio, and I'm a neurologist, so I'm used to talking about brains and brain health. But they asked me to speak to that at a professional women's conference, so I imagined to walk into the empty room. I thought, well, who's going to come? They're all here like hitting their professional goals and making their mission statements and working on their skills. They're like, why would they come to my lecture? So I walk in the room and it's packed and there's like standing room only. I'm like, oh, awesome. They love brains here too. So it was really exciting and people had a lot of questions. They really wanted to kind of dig deep into the details. They wanted to know how to get, what we know about the science of brain optimization and work, how they could get it into their lives. And I thought, I'm fine. I love talking about the science, but I need a coach or someone that can help me figure out human nature and how to help humans, pencil this into their life regularly, which is tricky. And we don't always have those skills. So I thought, okay, I need a life coach. And then Ali and I started chatting. She was at that lecture. So then we started chatting and I said, oh, I need you. We need to put our heads together so we can help brains around the world. So here we are.
Mm-hmm.
And how has that been working out?
Good. We've had the opportunity to give lectures, nationally here in the U.S. and it's been good. We've learned a lot. We're right now we're kind of reaching out to, of course, professionals that are struggling with COVID lifestyle challenges with work and COVID and isolation and productivity and focus. So that's been our focus, and we built a course to help people. Get some more tips, but yeah, it's been good. People like to talk about it and learn some new habits towards this.
And do you work with like a sort of particular sort of niche of people, or is it quite general, or how's that?
Yeah, we've been giving lectures to like professional, women doctors, healthcare professionals, and now we've gone into different, with different HR groups, so all different kind of professionals to talk about productivity and focus. And brain optimization.
And brain optimization and whole kind of brain science I guess for many people it's an area of a lot of confusion because most people don't really, there's so much misinformation around as well, which doesn't help things.
Mm-hmm. Well, we try to boil it down to things just to know where, if it's really new area for you, you're not sure where to start. We tried to just make these 3 spheres. Like we said, we're from Cleveland, Ohio, so we called it CLE. So people know kind of where to put their attention and their energy. So go ahead, Al, you want to talk about the CLE?
Yeah, what we found is that people want to know the information, of course, like as clear and concise as it can be. And so exactly, we've created a framework to help people to kind of examine where they are when it comes to how they're, taking care of their brain and how they're building their resiliency. And so the CLE framework, again, from Cleveland, is connection is the C. And so how connected do you feel? How connected are you to the people in your life and in your world? How, who are you surrounding yourself with? Are you surrounding yourself with people that do have positive health habits? Are you surrounding yourself with people that are not helping you to take better care of yourself? So really, we dive into a lot of detail on that connection piece and what matters most. And then the L stands for lifestyle habits. And so we know your audience is focused on that and interested in that. And you, of course, as an expert in that, know it's a very loaded kind of topic. And so lifestyle habits includes all of the things that you talk about a lot and that we know people do for their full day. So how they sleep, how their nutrition is, what kind of movement they're getting in on a daily basis, what are their habits around alcohol and drugs, what makes up their life, And so when we examine the sphere of lifestyle, we talk about like what matters most in each of those spheres. And then what Dr. Mary's research really shows that like, here's the place you want to be. And then you can kind of build those habits around making that happen in your life. And then the E stands for emotional processing. And so how do you move through your emotions? How do you handle them instead of stuffing them down? How do you really, manage the feelings that come up on a day-to-day basis? And what are your habits around those? Do you allow yourself to feel your feelings? Do you squish them down? Do you, put them on the side and save them for later? Or do you have those habits built in to really process emotions? Because the research shows that matters to our productivity, to our focus, and really resilience and optimization.
And so when did you start this program?
So we spoke on this a year and a half ago at a big conference, which really kicked off kind of like our framework. And then from there we built out the program, and the framework really kind of has it all wrapped up into a little bundle. So that's been really helpful because people, like we said, they want to know exactly what they need, right? We don't want too much information. We just want the right amount. We want to know what we need to know. And so everything kind of fits well in there. And oftentimes people are looking for something that is, a quick fix. And so we feel like the framework is our version of a quick fix in regards to how you can evaluate and how you can kind of focus on these things. But I would say we put it into practice about a year and a half ago.
And generally, is there like a sort of set time frame it usually takes to work with someone, or is it pretty varied?
Yeah.
Yeah, our course is 4 to 5 weeks. If for folks to kind of jump in, learn a little bit about it, do the self-assessment, and then start to practice the habits and figure out how to put it in their lives. But then it's a lifetime. Just we're all lifelong learners, and so each week you try to kind of learn a little bit and figure out how you can optimize what you need to that week, and then. What I see as a doc is a lot of folks will come to me, right before they're ready to retire and be like, hey, what should I do for my brain? I don't want to get that dementia thing. That's not a road I want to go down. And what the studies are showing that it actually matters, what the activities, what kids do with their brain, what teenagers, what, young adults in their 20s, so new professionals, every life stage, it really matters. So we're all kind of optimizing our brain through our whole lifespan. So it is good to know what to do. And Ali and I started talking about this really for caregivers because, as professionals, healthcare professionals, we gave, one of our first lectures was to a room full of women docs, and women docs, like any professionals, have, certain goals they have to hit. And when they're trying to balance caregiving for the community, for family, for friends, for parents, just like any professional. And so they're juggling a lot of goals and responsibilities. And so we looked up, how can we help them be better caregivers? And the research really points to this, this multi-system plan where you have to look at how you connect with humans because we are tribal, right? We know that we are tribal and we enjoy the connection. And that's why this year has been so tragic for all of us and challenging. But that's really what we need to make that a priority. And as professionals, we know that we need to have a professional network because it's your net worth. Professionally, we talk a lot about that, but just, brain optimization wise, we don't always talk about that, but there's something called your social network. So how many people do you know that kind of help you out? You're sick, would they bring over soup? Would they give you a tip? Will they, so what is your connection to your community? And who are those people? And what do they do with their lives? So, there's been many medical studies showing that your social network, especially if you have a chronic disease, is challenged by your disease. And if you are healthy, your social network can support you. So we were looking like, how can we support these women docs? And you just need to have some activity in each of these spheres. So you need to focus on connection. Lifestyle is a loaded word. Some people don't even want to hear about it, but it's really how you live your life. How do you live your days? What do you put in your days? What do you prioritize? And then emotional processing, we're finding a lot of people don't like to open that closet. They don't like to go in there. It's a scary place. They don't know what to do when they get in there. They don't want to see anything too scary or dark. So we just give folks tips just to, get through naming emotions, realizing they don't have power unless you let them kind of stay ahead of them, try not to react. So just, things just some tips. And when people did those all together, when they addressed those three areas, they were better caregivers. And we all want to be there for others to help others. And so that's what we were focusing on, especially with that lecture to, healthcare providers, because they're caregivers as professionals, and then they're also caregivers in their community.
Mm-hmm. And since the whole pandemic started, has it changed your focus or how you deliver the program? And has there been much changes?
Well, yeah, it's opened up opportunities like this that we get to connect with people from around the world, which is really exciting. And it's given us more opportunities. We're not in the car kind of traveling to meetings or traveling, and we're not in the, airplanes. So I find it gives me more time to focus and to be productive so that when we do meet with people, we're not wasting time traveling. Although I like to travel, but we just, that's been removed, obviously. So it's given us more time. And, of course, it focused us to be creative like anyone else, to think about new ways to get things done. So that's the resiliency, right? It's just, I want to get to here. It's going to look different. My path to, X is going to be different now. I have to go over something or around something or under something. And that's resiliency. It's just kind of finding a new way to get things done.
Yeah, absolutely. And we really, I think also the idea of focus and productivity has really been brought to the forefront when it comes to taking care of yourself. So often people, as I'm sure, are focused on lifestyle habits for their body or for, trying to attain a certain goal. But when you're forced to work at home and you're forced to take care of your family at home and everything kind of changes, and all of a sudden, we're really trying to help people tie and understand the meaning of those habits have so much more to do with your brain, your productivity, your focus, and your body, but not just your body. And so by understanding that it's that whole person approach, there's just, I think, a lot of good positive energy around oh, wow, this is also a positive benefit to these lifestyle habits and to, connection and all of these things. So helping people to draw that connection has become even more important since the pandemic because, our challenges have been so huge when it comes to that.
And has it been, how has the challenge been about, I presume most of this you're delivering online now as opposed to before it was face-to-face. How has that been?
Yeah, the first thing we built was on an app. So that actually was something that we recorded, and even though it wasn't COVID, so it was app-based and people could take on their own, and then there was coaching with the app. But this, yes, obviously we're on podcasts because that's one way to, people love podcasts and I love them as well because I can be driving and listen to them or running or walking and cleaning the house, whatever. I love the flexibility of podcasts. So we have packaged it differently and tried to put it in, small packages because people can only take in so much. They're tired. It's a hard time to focus. But we focus on the fact that, there are things that you can do to optimize kind of what you're able to get done in the day. So one of my favorite studies I read was that if you're tired, if you're sleep deprived, you don't prioritize your sleep, the way you perceive the world is different. So this was a study looking at functional MRI. So there's a special kind of MRI, a picture of the brain, and it can tell what parts of the brain are lit up. And when people are tired and they would look at someone's face, they would see anger more often if they were tired rather than well rested. So when we say, the world is this, and we're saying everyone's this, sometimes it's, our ability to perceive things because of what we're doing or not doing with our brain to put it in a good, positive emotional state. So I think that's the magic, is that we actually can do things day to day to optimize our perception, our creativity, our positive emotional state. We swing, during the day, negative, positive, But there's ways to manipulate it into a more positive state, which is our creative state.
What would you say is what do people have the most resistance towards in what you do with them?
Yeah. What do you think, Al?
I would say it depends on their lifestyle. If their habits are pretty aligned and they're in a good routine with those, then they feel good about that. If that's like really something that can be, of course, overwhelming. And so we've had a lot of clients that are just, understanding. And I think our whole message is similar to yours, and taking like that little steps really do matter. So that can be a big roadblock. But then the other one is the emotional processing piece. And people, like Mary said, are not sure what it means to kind of deep dive into your feelings. And we don't often want to allow ourselves to feel things that are negative. But once we realize that we can build habits around processing emotions, and we can build habits around feeling our feelings in a way that isn't scary and is a way, and it's actually going to help us move forward more positively, then that I think is a really beautiful gift that gets given, because again, without the support and without the understanding that your brain, is impacted by squishing down your emotions and just kind of like covering them up, then you might not have that understanding how important it is. And so, yeah, I would say people are often resistant, like, ooh, I'm not sure about diving into that, but there's so many small ways to just move through them, as easy as starting to name your feelings, journaling, meditating, these type of things that then allow you, when you do feel anger, you do feel disappointment, you do feel frustration, you can, not worry that you're going to react in a way that you don't want to. You're more comfortable with those. So I would say until people have a better understanding of that, they do feel like that's a big obstacle. And then just that knowledge and understanding that this can be done simply is hugely important.
As you started explaining that, one of the things that was going through my mind especially when you're talking about the emotional side of it, I wondered if there's much difference in the reactions you get from men and women, especially on the emotional side.
Mm-hmm. The men so far want a very clear path. They want A to B to C to D in a Y, so I'm very, very clear. The women kind of want some more, in my impression, the women want more time to kind of slow down and think about the why as well. Why should they do this? And women tend to have easier time taking care of themselves if they think it's for someone else, which it is. So that's, if we're good caregivers, if we do these things, we'll be better caregivers for our community, our families, our friends. So we have seen a different approach. And of course, it's not down the middle, black and white, but we do see different approaches, that they want it very clearly marked. But yeah, I think there's neat things. I think when you see the power of it, it's number one, it's grabbing people's attention. When you said, it's physics, right? So it's like hard to get people in motion if they're not in motion. So we've had responses say, I've had a hard enough year, you guys, come on, I don't want to talk about this. I've been through enough. And then when they realize the power that what I'm saying is, I like efficiency. That's just one of the things I put as a priority. And I'm saying you can have a more efficient day if you learn a few things about this. Just get a little brain wonder. You don't have to know everything about the brain. Like I say, I have a cell phone. I don't know everything, how it works, but I know I have to plug it in at night. I know I have to take care of it, not throw it in the ocean. So I just want, I'm just requesting a touch of brain wonder, because I think you'll be surprised by the outcomes. So we have, like you've talked about the tiny habits. We talk about, okay, are you willing to do one or two things this week? Just very small start in some folks. And some people like to jump in and do everything. Some people just need like one thing just to see the positive outcomes.
What would you say have been, can you think of any stories of people who have been like really surprised at what's happened when they've gone through working with you?
I did have one person who was super angry about, even thinking about it, or, her work. And she was just in an angry state. She was just mad about most things. And I was like, okay, let's take one step at a time. And she really did. And she was able to slow down and start just a little bit at a time. And she could then start feeling the difference that she thought people were nicer. I mean, it's funny, like her perceptions changed. She thought work was a little bit better. And then she became more creative. So she learned like, I really love this about my job. She got on some new projects, and then she ended up taking a new job because she really loved this part of her job. She realized she loved these parts. So she wanted to find something in that area. So I've seen those kind of outcomes. Ali, what about you?
Yeah, I think another big impact with people, and we've had a few specific clients, is people are, when they're trying to take care of themselves and when they're trying to build that self-care in, having the understanding that this is such a piece and having that message from the doctor that this matters really creates a positive shift where it's like, oh, we all know we should, quote unquote, do whatever. But when you can then tie it to like, well, this is what the research says, and here's what is really going to change in my life. And this is actually for me to be able to help people. That's, I think, where we've seen a lot of change in women. It's like giving that permission, to that next level permission that they've probably heard from different sources, but just that next level permission to really take ownership of like their habits and their spaces in these spheres that have really been able to positively shift it. It's like, oh, this kind of clicked and came together and made this happen for me where I've been trying to. But once you tie in that doctor's orders, that always helps too.
And you mentioned a couple of times about taking it really slowly. Have there been cases where you've been working with people and they've just been so enthusiastic about what you're saying, they want to try and do everything at once?
Yes. It's funny because our course, we give people so much each week and they can't get it early. It frustrates some people. Like, I want to, at first they're like, I want it all right now. They're super enthusiastic. They want it all. But then after they've been in a few weeks, they say, oh, I see why you did that. It gave them time to work on it, just to get really one thing, one new thing that week really ingrained in their daily habits. So it is pretty funny. We do have some of those approaches, where people are like, I want it all today, and they just like digest it, but they're not sure then how to put it into their lives. The other thing we've seen people say, oh, I got to get my brain together. I don't know what I'm doing. And we review their life and they're doing amazing things. Right. So we've seen a lot of that. Like, okay, you're like a multi-business owner, a parent of young kids. Right. Look at you. You're teaching your kids at home. And then sometimes you see them, they're relaxed. Like, yeah, I am doing good things. And that's part of our program. Is like, look, you're doing all these things in all the three spheres. You're doing something like you got this. You're good. You don't have to add anything else. You got this, So it is funny. Some people say, they're scared of even thinking about it because they're not sure where they are going to be, kind of where they're supposed to be doing. And some are really rocking it and they're not aware of it.
They're not celebrating that enough. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's so many people really beat themselves up and don't realize how well they are doing in so many respects.
Yeah, I think she seemed like shameful, and she owned multiple businesses. She had little kids who were learning at home for years. They haven't been out of the house. Yeah, so it's just on and on. It's just so many good things.
We hope you're enjoying this episode of the Habits and Health podcast, where we believe that creating healthy habits should be easy. If you know a friend or a loved one who might be interested in learning simple habits to improve their health, then please share this podcast with them. We also invite you to subscribe and to leave us a review on your favorite podcast app. Now, back to the show.
Have you got any thoughts on why people are so likely to be very negative about themselves? What do you think about that?
I think it's a big combination, right? So we are continuously judging ourselves. We're continuously comparing ourselves. Those are things that we learn when we're so young. And it's almost like if we don't unlearn them, then they stay with us and they continue on. And so, oftentimes we find we're our own worst critic. And I think it's something that becomes ingrained very young. And unless even, you're around people who are really conscious and aware of trying to help not allow that to happen, then society really just allows that to happen. And so then you add in social media, you add in everything being performance-based, and there are a lot of reasons to, be critical. And so that is a huge thing that we really believe in, just like that support of that self-love, because of course that makes everything easier, which I think is actually something that we find is very hard to to help people move into, because it's unnatural and it's uncomfortable to really appreciate yourself and to really celebrate yourself. And so that is a huge part of our mission too, as well, is just like highlighting how, if you're doing well, then that's amazing. And you need to like reaffirm to yourself all the good things you're doing. So it's not just about giving people more to do, because we know that they are negative enough and they, are hard enough on themselves, but it's really that, how do you bring out, the positive energy, and help them to use that as momentum and to carry them through.
The partnership you have seems to make so much sense in so many ways, and yet from what my experience, I haven't heard many people with this approach before. Do you know of others doing something similar to you, or is it quite unique as far as you're aware?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I think not that I know of. Yeah, this is important to me. I feel like, I know the science. I just want to make sure people know, because I don't want people, missing these opportunities. And I also think, there's a lot of great scientists out there, but sometimes it's hard for them to share just in, with the general public, because they're not comfortable with that. They don't, they feel like, well, you should come to the doctor and hear it. But a GP or primary care doc, they have to do a lot of things in a visit. So it's hard for them also to say, oh yeah, by the way, you're 25. It's really important what you do today for your brain. It will help your brain serve you more as you age. And, it's like, that messaging, but there's, some global groups looking at brain health, and they, think you can decrease like vascular dementia by 40% if people knew more about, what they could or couldn't do for the brain over their years. And you think, wow, it's really impactful. So I just want to get that message out. And then, we see so much burnout and people struggling at work and struggling at home, and thought, oh, well, let's bring it there as well, because, sometimes you don't come to the doctor, so something's wrong, but we want to give people these tools before they're, quote unquote sick,
Can you think of any examples of people you've been working with who at the beginning, or maybe at the beginning were very reluctant and they just thought you're not going to be able to help me, and who you were able to turn them around?
We have a client, yes, who is a single woman professional. And I would say she was one of the ones that was just not sure. She is a doc. Actually, she was a client after the program, and she was just thinking like, I'm not sure that this is for me. I'm not sure what to do. But she also really wanted that research. And she's a great example, because she has made so many changes in her life by taking back that little ownership and being able to celebrate the habits that she is doing, and really, be able to find a new job and be able to move on to, implementing so many of the things where she really needs the research. So back to your original point about the combination of the two of us, I think that's been one of the most powerful, because she's someone who is like, I'm not going to do anything that's not proven, and I need that to be something that's proven for me. And then also I need that help with implementing this, and I need that validation of what I'm doing. So she kind of needs that whole package. And again, since she started the program, she was validated on a lot of things, implemented, and really enhanced her understanding and her importance of the connections and the emotional processing. I would say she had the lifestyle down pretty well, and then has again similarly gone on to be able to move and find a better job that suited her, and just really that positive transformation that you're like, wow, I wouldn't say that this is completely related only to this course, but it did help her put a lot of things together that empowered her enough to move on and, get something that really fit her life better.
And how do you see this? How do you see this developing in the next few years?
Yeah, our dream also is to bring this to kids. We just were on a podcast with someone that was one of our first dreams at our first presentation. Is like, if we're good models, this will spread. And we're both moms, and so if we could spread it to younger generations, that would mean the world to us. If people could just realize that, again, get some brain wonder and realize that there's things that they can do. Again, just to be more efficient at work, so they can go out and have fun and get work done and know what to optimize. So yeah, we would love to keep scaling. And we do have a client in the UK as well, because the lockdown was so severe, and a single professional. And she wasn't sure that she had the time. She was working online and, had been through COVID and, so we've been working with her and she's, it's been really neat for her. Again, there was some shame, like, oh, I didn't know this. Why don't I know this? It's like she has a lot of degrees. She's an intelligent person. And like, it's just today. Today's your day. You have this new knowledge. Today, it's like change, as you teach about change, like sometimes we don't know what we don't know. And then we know it. And then what are you going to do with the knowledge? Are you actually going to do something with that? So that's where I can give you the knowledge. And then Ali helps us put it into, to be able to fit it into our lifestyle. But that was pretty neat because she thought, she was having a hard time working in an apartment, by herself and in her own flat, I should say, by herself. And it was it was a struggle because she didn't feel well from COVID and she was trying to get her work done. So just learning, again, just small changes to begin with, just learn about it. Just first of all, figure this out, that this is important and put a little bit of energy in it, not 100 new things in your week, maybe one new thing in your week.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we do want to spread it too, because we do find that people are looking, like I said, for a pill or a magic bullet. And Mary often has patients come in just like, tell me what to take. Or we get questions in presentations like, well, what supplement, is it? And it's like, no, it's not that. So I think, our mission of spreading the understanding that like taking care of yourself in this way, that in these ways can feel good. I mean, we're talking about connecting with people and we're talking about journaling and we're talking about, so having that understanding that this can, add to your flourishing positive life is hugely important. It's not something that is going to be horribly treacherous, but at the same time, it's also not a pill or something very simple. So I think, that is really our main point of the mission, and it can be done with your whole family. Like Mary was saying, just our mission to spread with the kids. We feel like these aren't things that you need to spend hours doing. And when you are able to do them with your family, then they just get built in and instilled at a young age too.
When would you say that for both of you first noticed in your life that by focusing maybe more on habits, it would help you get to where you wanted to go? How old do you think you were when you first had that realization?
Yeah, I remember a long time ago, like early in my career, someone telling me about the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, and I always like that framework. It's kind of how I think. So if I'm working on a project, you kind of keep a list of my roles and what I'm trying to get done. And I've noticed in my own life as a doc or, a researcher or anything, is just if I want to get something done, I have to look at it regularly, schedule, and if I'm going to build a team, I'm meeting with the team regularly so that we can keep setting goals each week and hit them, achievable goals. Because otherwise, if I say, hey, let's just get this done, but we don't have any plan for it, it's not going to happen. So I definitely have noticed that over the years. I will say what's interesting to me personally is I do meditate regularly and journal regularly, but there's some weeks where I just forget or I don't do it. And then I see the consequences of not doing it. But when I do it, it's not so obvious to me, like, oh, I feel amazing. Like right after I meditate, I feel good. But I don't realize the power of it until I don't do it. And then like, oh, why is my week a mess? Like, why am I losing it by noon? So that's personally myself, like when I see the benefits of some of these habits, if I don't do it, I leave some of these things out. It matters.
Mm-hmm. I'd say my parents were different. They're both, of course, amazing, but my dad was always like a very habit regimented guy, and he always knew where everything was, and he, had his stuff right in place. And so growing up, it was like, I was not that way. I was more similar to my mom. My mom is such like a caregiver and a lover. She doesn't have everything particular, it's like that different personality. And so I would always watch and be like, look at that. He has exactly what he needs right there when he needs it. And it was kind of like that habit. We always talked about that, but it wasn't until I had my third daughter that I was like, I felt like I had a daughter and then I had another daughter and I kind of like had everything in control. And then I had that third one, and it pushed me to the edge of like, oh my goodness, like I need to get these habits in check into my own life. And so while I was always, pretty type A in just like focusing in school and work and all of those things that I could always keep it all together. I didn't really fully understand until I had 3 kids that like habits are absolutely the answer to giving yourself, a break in your brain so you don't have to think so much. You don't ask yourself, am I going to work out? You don't spend any energy thinking, should I do this or that? You work out, and you don't ask yourself, should I meditate for 5 minutes? That's just built in. It's automatic. It's like, when am I going to do this? When am I going to do this? And so that shift really happened after 3 kids, like 5 years ago, where I fully committed to like making space in my mind to make these things happen and not ask myself every day if I was going to do them or not.
Mary, you mentioned meditation there. Do you find that more people are much more receptive to meditation now than previously?
I think that has been a bonus, if there's any bonus to living through the pandemic, is that people have heard more about, the habits that will help their mental health. So they've heard more about journaling and meditation and, taking a walk, taking a break from Zoom, during the day. So that's been great. I still think people aren't sure quite how to do it, but I have heard more people, they know about it. And I think with YouTube and things so accessible and free, that it's just been wonderful. And I think even it's in the schools here, where the kids take a break or they take a brain break, they call it, where they jump around and dance. And, and so I think it's great that it's being modeled in different ways and it's accessible. I always, teach my patients about it, guided imagery and meditation, because it's free. You don't need anything. And you can do it when I say, waiting for me in the waiting room or on Zoom or what have you. So I love those kind of tools that are very accessible. You don't need to buy anything, no products. And it's just a matter of putting it on your phone. Like somebody we were just talking to said you have to put it in their phone with a reminder so they don't forget. I mean, I put it in my calendar. I put these things in my calendar now just because I can't take it for granted. I've seen the benefit of sticking with these habits.
Mm-hmm. And it seems to, my perception, and I could be wrong, is that maybe 10 years ago, people had this stereotyped image of the only way to do meditation was to sit in lotus position and be doing and everything. And now it seems to be people are realizing that that's not true. That's not the only way to do it.
Right. And it has been nice. Like a lot of the apps were free for folks during the pandemic. And so I think it did just make it more available, more widely available. And it was just more discussed, which is wonderful. I think it's a great tool. We know that it can really support mental health in a way that's very powerful. So again, without having to buy anything, typically, we have access to a tool that can really help to, help our positive emotional state, which is really important during a pandemic, right? At any time, most importantly during a pandemic.
And taking off our own ideas attached to it. So exactly what you were saying, it doesn't have to be done seated. It doesn't have to be done, for 45 minutes, 5 minutes while you're walking, 5 minutes in nature without any noise or phone can be your meditation. So I think just kind of rewriting that story of what meditation looks like in the world is so hugely empowering. What meditation looks like in your life and for you right now today, so that it becomes easy to make happen is huge.
Ali, have you found people you've been working with, has there been many clients you've worked with who have really been not very keen maybe on doing meditation when you first suggested it? I don't know, anything along those lines?
Absolutely. Yeah, I do find that. I feel like at this point, if people haven't tried meditation on their own, then they are resistant, right? And so a part of it is like having that conversation about where's the resistance coming from? Why is this feel like something you don't want to get into? And oftentimes I find with clients, so many of them are high achieving. We're all busy, of course, we all know those obstacles. And it's often that like, I can't make my brain stop. And it's like, okay, well, let's think of some other ways that you can do this. Starting with a guided meditation can be a great way where, again, using a resource like YouTube or one of the apps that's very simple and easy. And one of the things I love to do with clients is have them use YouTube and actually look up short guided 5-minute meditation with a topic that feels, resonant to them. So for stress or for overwhelm or for anxiety or for whatever it is they're feeling in that moment, in that time, and then building that habit of what am I feeling right now? First, it helps them to check in on the emotional processing piece. And then what could 5 minutes do of meditation? And on YouTube or some of these apps, there's so many options. And I find that especially when my brain's really busy, or especially at the beginning of getting into the habit, if it's not talking to me, then I can't, it's hard to get into, right? So really picking the thing that is speaking to you in that moment. If it's stress, if it's worry, if it's fear, then you can listen to something that's like, oh, this is what I'm feeling. So it's almost like check in with yourself and then look up the 5-minute meditation that goes with that. And that's how I've had a lot of clients break through that barrier, because it's hard when you turn on a meditation and they're talking about something that you just can't get into at that moment. So I find that that's one of the best ways.
Can you think of anything when you were a child that you absolutely loved doing? And what kind of things were they? And I'm just wondering if there's any connection to that and what you do now.
Yeah, I always loved art and creating and crafting. So I feel like that's related to neurology, because neurology is a lot of like connecting, and you have to kind of imagine like what connects to what. So I think that works. That's kind of down the same pathway. You have to be creative. And so I still I try every Sunday to do some art, even if it's super simple. I just get a crayon out or something, because I just want to acknowledge that my brain needs a little downtime, and it's my happy place, and so there's no expectations. I don't tend to show it to anyone. I just do something to get away. And I would say that or nature. Those are my two things, and I do still get so much from being in nature.
Yeah, I would say I used to play with dolls, and I used to teach them and have a school, and that is like basically what I grew up to do. I used to be a teacher. And so I could be lost in taking care of the dolls and teaching them whatever I was teaching them. And so that's absolutely played in, because my background is in education and curriculum. And then, of course, now it's teaching adults, but I can just get back into that zone of kind of my own world of connecting with people or dolls.
Mm-hmm. And do you read much, Ellie?
I read, yes, absolutely, yes.
And what kind of things do you like to read?
I am a realistic fiction and definitely a nonfiction reader. I have to make myself read things for pleasure, because I love learning so much that it's hard to not just go on to the next, book that someone mentions. And I'm definitely a chronic. If I hear if someone mentions a book, I'll just order it on Amazon immediately, even without looking into it. So I am a huge reader, and I've actually really enjoyed, my kids are 10, 7, and 5. So I've been enjoying children's literature so much and getting back into all those stories. I've realized not all of the books are good. I feel like we need to, write some awesome kids books, but those young adults books are really fun to get lost in with my kids as well. Mm-hmm.
Are you much of a reader, Mary?
Yes. Yeah. I usually have a few going. Sometimes I have too many on my nightstand. And then I have so I listen to them online, and if I'm doing something in the house or out gardening or something. And I'm reading Obama's book right now, which I just love. I have my oldest daughter is a big reader too, and she actually stopped reading it because she's like, it's so good, I don't want to finish it because I don't want it to be over. So I was like, what? And she's like, I love it so much. And I see what she's saying. Like, his voice is really peaceful and kind of authoritative and kind of very authentic throughout the book. And so I'm enjoying that very much right now. And I usually, like Allie, I usually am reading also or listening to something that is more instructive. And then I'm in a book club, so I'm generally reading some kind of fiction or something. Yeah.
And when you're reading a book with the aim of using the information, for something maybe like work related or whatever, what techniques do you have for really trying to retain that information?
Yeah, I mean, I try to some books suggest, you do something throughout the year. So I try to put it in my calendar, so I say if it says, think about your vision, what's your vision statement each year, I'll put it in or check in after 3 months with your vision statement some success habits or something. I try to put them in my calendar so I don't have to try to think, what did that book say to do when, The other thing I do is if I'm listening while I'm cleaning or doing something around the house, I'll listen to it twice. And I know the thing that sticks to my brain best are the stories, like you said. So when I re-listen to a book, I remember all the stories. I just don't remember exactly like all the tips, all the assignments. So I've been recently listening to Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller, and it's really instructive in anything, even if you're not trying to market something, but you're trying to just share a message. And as a doctor, we do that all day long. We try to share an influence and support people. And so stories tend to help there too. And I'm a coach as well, so stories really help. And I see they help me when I re-listen to a book. I remember every story. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm an underliner. I underline and mark and write all over books. So if I always have to scan them if I let someone borrow them. Like, what was I writing in there? So that helps.
The good stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Circle, star.
Mm-hmm.
And while we're talking about books, can you see yourself ever putting something down in a book?
Yeah, absolutely. We've had this conversation quite a bit too, and just when is the right time and what is the right focus of writing something together that really does pair the science and the research with the implementation and the integration, and so that is definitely something on our list as well. And I think that it's down the line, and I think there's a lot of room for it, and something that's interactive with giving some stories and ideas as well. So for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if people want to find out more about you and your course and everything you do, where would be the best place to go?
Yeah, we're on brainopsgroup.com is the website to start from there, and then you can find both of us, brainopsgroup.com. That's a good place to start. We're both on LinkedIn. So you can find us all over Facebook, Insta. Yeah.
And if anyone, I'm just wondering, for anyone who's listening now and thinking, maybe they're thinking, is this for me or not? Who do you think, if any, what doubts might someone have in their mind now that would be addressed by what you do?
Yeah, I would say all the details. When people are wondering, how much should I work out? What do you mean by the connection? What are the amounts and the thresholds that the research shows that are important? I think that's what this course really speaks to. So the health and wellness world we know is so overwhelming. And so when you're looking for what's that bottom line that the research shows matters, that's what this course really outlines, because Mary's research is so clear. This is the amount of minutes to exercise, and here's what's shown to work. And so you can then get those thresholds. So if you're a person who's really trying to understand what, I have all of these things to do, maybe you're doing a lot of them and you want that validation, or maybe you're not doing them and you need that extra, help me get this going, then that I think is the biggest benefit, because not only is it pairing what matters most and then giving you the tips, but oftentimes, as a coach, oftentimes getting the information is not enough. So we've tried to really pair Mary's research with some actionable tips, but sometimes that's not enough. So then once you have this plan and once you have this understanding of what matters, then finding someone to work with, like a coach, is hugely beneficial in helping to make it happen and become a part of who you are and what you do.
Well, finally, before we go, is there a quotation that either of you have that you particularly like?
I do have one from Nelson Mandela. His quotes have been hitting me lately. I'm not sure why, but here's one. It says, "May your choices reflect your hopes, not your fears." So I do love that one. I love so many of his, but I love that one.
Why does that resonate with you, Mary?
Well, because sometimes, we know, as a brain doc, I know the brain is protecting us, so it'll help us feel fear with new ideas or new habits. We'll feel fear first because it's new to us, and that's fine. So we just have to say, thank you, brain. We know you're protecting us, but we're going to move ahead. This is something that's going to serve me in the long run. So I think if you move forward according to your hopes rather than your fears, you're going to find some doors opening and be in more creative space happier, more, flourishing days rather than not changing, because we know our brain is malleable. I always tell people it's not a brick, it can change. It's not a brick. It's growing every time you learn something new. It's different. It changes. And so if you lead according to your values and you walk forward according to values and hopes, I think your life is more interesting.
And Ali, do you have one?
Yes. So one thing I think I've really noticed is that people oftentimes think they need to do everything on their own. And I'm sure as a coach, and is that, that asking for help can be hugely important. So be strong enough to stand alone and you're doing things your way, smart enough to know when you need help, and then brave enough to ask for it. Because oftentimes we just think that we really just have to figure this out on our own. And there's so much support. And now with the world being so accessible to us, and, we will probably never go back fully to coaching in person or whatever, but that opens up so many opportunities and doors to have that right in your home. And so I think that just kind of putting out there that, like, if you're trying to implement your habits and it's just not working, or if you need some more info, then asking for help there's so many great ways to get it.
Well, Ali and Mary, it's been a real pleasure speaking of you. So thank you for coming onto the show. And best of luck with your program and everything that you do.
Yeah, all the best to you. Thank you for what you do and for this opportunity. Stay well.
Yeah, thank you.
Next week, episode 12 is with Johnny and Yusuf, better known for the podcast they run called Propane Fitness. They're experts in the world of both medicine and fitness, and they've really combined those two areas. Yusuf is a doctor. They know a lot about many different areas of exercise and fitness, from strength building and weight training and gymnastics and the breath and many other areas. And so that's next week's episode with Johnny and Yusuf. Hope you've enjoyed this week's show, and see you next week.
Thanks for tuning in to the Habits and Health Podcast, where we believe creating healthy habits should be easy. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite podcast app. Sign up for email updates and learn about coaching and workshop opportunities at tonywinyard.com. See you next time on the Habits and Health Podcast.